The text message lit up my phone screen at exactly 2:14 a.m. I can't stop thinking about tonight. I still feel you all over me. Miss you already. I stared at it, the words burning into my eyes as if I could somehow erase them by blinking too hard. But there it was, as clear as the smug grin I imagined plastered on whatever asshole sent it. I knew immediately it wasn't meant for me. My wife, Hannah, lay asleep beside me, her blonde hair fanned across the pillow like she hadn't just blown up our marriage in the middle of the night. For a second, I thought about waking her right then and there, shoving the phone in her face and demanding to know who the fuck was texting her at 2 a.m. with that kind of message. But something held me back. Not shock, not sadness, just cold, bitter curiosity. So instead of waking her, I slipped out of bed, padded into the bathroom, and locked the door behind me. I scrolled through her messages, hands trembling more from adrenaline than anger. And there it was, a whole thread of texts. Jason, you're incredible. You wore me out tonight. I'm still hard thinking about it. Hannah, stop LOL. I'm exhausted. But maybe next week. Next week? Next fucking week? My stomach twisted into knots. I've been out of town for work the entire week prior, flown in just a few hours ago. Hannah had picked me up from the airport all smiles, even kissed me in the car like she'd missed me. That kiss felt fake now, her lips tasting like someone else's hands had been on her earlier. I closed the thread, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the faucet dripping in the sink. She hadn't even tried to hide it. No fake name. No deleted messages. Jason. Who the hell was Jason? As if to twist the knife further, a picture caught my eye in her photo gallery. It was time-stamped 2 days ago. She was in bed, our bed, wearing that sheer black lingerie I'd bought her last Christmas. The same lingerie she claimed made her feel too exposed whenever I suggested she wear it. But she hadn't looked uncomfortable in that photo. She looked smug, smiling at the camera, one hand brushing down her stomach, the angle just enough to hint at what lay further down. I should have felt rage, betrayal, but all I felt was ice-cold calculation. I stared at her reflection in the mirror, pale, under the moonlight, slipping through the window. I couldn't hear her breathing through the door anymore. I slid my phone into my pocket, unlocked the bathroom, and stepped back into the bedroom. She was still there, peaceful, oblivious. The thought crossed my mind, clear and cold. Let her think she's winning. Let her think I don't know. And so, I slipped back into bed beside my cheating wife, wrapping my arms around her waist as if I hadn't just seen the messages that would ruin everything. The moment my arm wrapped around her, Hannah stirred, pressing her body back into mine like we were still the couple everyone thought we were. She let out a soft hum, nuzzling deeper into the sheets. You're back," she mumbled half asleep. Her voice was thick with fake warmth, and I hated how easily it could have fooled me if I hadn't seen the truth glowing from her phone screen just minutes ago. I kissed the back of her neck, lips brushing against her skin like I hadn't just read how Jason had been inside her. "Yeah, I'm back." She smiled. "I missed you." I smiled right back. "I missed you too." That was the first lie. I lay awake the rest of the night, my hand resting on her stomach, wondering how far this had gone. Wondering if Jason knew she was married, if he cared. Wondering how long Hannah thought she could play both sides without getting burned. By the time the sun broke over the horizon, I had a plan. The next morning, Hannah moved through the house like nothing had happened. She showered, sang softly under her breath, and kissed me quickly before heading off to work, just like any other day. I watched her pull out of the driveway, fingers drumming against the kitchen counter. My mind ran in overdrive. This wasn't just a slip. This wasn't a drunken mistake she regretted. The texts were too casual, the intimacy too familiar. Jason wasn't some random stranger. I needed to know everything. Step 1, find Jason. I poured myself another cup of coffee and opened her laptop. Hannah wasn't exactly a mastermind when it came to covering her tracks. Her passwords were the same recycled variations of our wedding date or the dog's name. Easy to guess. I was in her email within minutes. Bingo. There were messages from Jason dating back months. He wasn't just some fling. This had been going on for a while. Flights, hotels, dinner reservations, even little Venmo payments with the most irritating captions. For dessert, last night was amazing. It wasn't even subtle. And that wasn't the worst of it. The next message knocked the air out of my lungs. Jason, when are you telling him about the baby? I read it twice. 3 times. My eyes burned, but the words didn't change. The baby. I sat there, frozen, feeling like someone had just driven a nail through my chest. We hadn't had sex in over a month. She'd blamed it on stress, work, hormones, whatever excuse fit the moment. I hadn't thought twice about it. But Jason wasn't talking about his baby. He was talking about their baby. My hand clenched around the edge of the table, so hard I thought it might crack. I didn't say a word to Hannah that night. I played my role perfectly. The loving, unsuspecting husband. She kissed me on the cheek, curled up next to me on the couch, even laughed at some stupid show on Netflix while I sat there, barely registering any of it. I kept glancing at her stomach. The place where Jason's baby was growing. How long has she known? How long was she planning to lie? By the time we went to bed, my patience was razor thin. She changed into one of my old shirts, crawling into bed beside me like it was just another night. I watched her from the doorway, arms crossed over my chest. "You've been glowing lately," I said softly. She smiled, brushing her hair back over her shoulder. "Maybe I'm just happy you're home." Another lie. I forced a grin, stepping closer. Or maybe there's another reason. Her smile faltered for half a second. Just barely. But I caught it. "What do you mean?" she asked too quickly. I let the silence stretch, watching her fidget beneath the sheets. God, she looked nervous. And she should be. I leaned over, brushing my hand across her stomach. My fingers pressed gently against her skin, lingering just a little too long. "Nothing," I whispered, pressing my lips to her forehead. "Just happy to have you back." That was the second lie. The next few days played out like a sick game of chess. I let her think she was winning, let her think I was none the wiser. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings, sent sweet texts in the afternoons, even planned a weekend getaway. Because what kind of cheating wife says no to a trip with her husband? She didn't suspect a thing. But while she was at work, I was busy. I started with Jason. I found his Instagram, his LinkedIn. He wasn't hard to track down. I even found a photo of him at some bar downtown, tagged just 2 nights ago. Smug, clean-cut, early 30s. He didn't look special. Just another asshole who thought fucking someone else's wife made him a man. I memorized his face. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. That part came later. For now, I was patient. Let Hannah keep digging her own grave. Let Jason keep thinking he was untouchable. Soon enough, they'd both know exactly who they were messing with. By the end of the week, I had enough dirt to bury both of them. Jason wasn't just some random fling. He worked with Hannah closely, some sales manager at her firm. They shared projects, late nights, business trips. Now I knew what those work retreats really were. Every time she'd kissed me goodbye at the airport, Jason had been the one waiting for her at the other end. It made me sick. But the baby, that was the tipping point. Friday night, Hannah was in the shower. Her humming echoed faintly through the bathroom door, steam curling out beneath the crack. I sat on the bed, staring at her unlocked phone. I wasn't sure why I kept checking it. I already knew everything I needed, but I couldn't help myself. Jason, I can't wait to feel him kick. I'm still thinking about that night at the cabin. I let out a slow breath through my nose. Him. A boy. I gripped the phone tighter. She hadn't told me yet. Not a word. Jason knew she was pregnant before I did. He knew the gender. I set the phone down carefully on the nightstand, like it might explode if I wasn't gentle enough. The bathroom door clicked open, and Hannah stepped out, wrapped in nothing but a towel. Her skin glistened, damp hair clinging to her shoulders. She smiled at me like she wasn't carrying another man's child. "Hey," she said softly, patting over to sit beside me. Her hand grazed my thigh. "Miss me?" I kissed her shoulder, tasting water and soap. "Always." The lies were getting easier. 2 weeks later, I waited until I had every piece in place before making my move. It was Saturday morning, and Hannah was already dressed, sipping tea by the window. Her phone sat charging on the kitchen counter, no password this time. She'd been getting careless. I wanted her to be careless. I'd left a single envelope beside her cup. Plain, unmarked. She glanced at it casually at first, not thinking much of it. But the second she peeled back the flap and pulled out the photos inside, Her whole body stiffened. Jason. Her. At a hotel. His hand on her stomach. Photo after photo. Each one sharper than the last. She dropped them like they'd burned her. What the fuck is this? I didn't answer right away. I sipped my coffee, watching her scramble to gather the evidence, as if shoving them back into the envelope would somehow erase the truth. Where did you get these, Michael? I finally looked up, letting the weight of my stare press down on her. I know everything, Hannah. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at me like she couldn't decide whether to cry or lie. Probably both. You've been busy, I added, setting my mug down with a soft clink. Jason seems thrilled. Congratulations, by the way. Aboya? Her face drained of color. Michael. I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. She froze, biting her lips so hard I thought it might bleed. How long? I asked, voice low. 6 months, she whispered, eyes glued to the floor. It started on that Denver trip. I smiled. I'd already known that. You could have told me. I wanted to. I didn't know how. You didn't know how? I repeated, leaning back against the counter. Or you just didn't want to? She didn't answer. I could feel the panic rolling off her in waves. So what now? She asked, voice trembling. What are you going to do? I stared at her for a long moment, savoring the tension tightening her shoulders. Then I smiled. I already did it. Jason didn't show up to work on Monday. By Tuesday, the rumors had started swirling. By Wednesday, Hannah's office had fired him. Turns out it's not a good look when explicit photos of a manager sleeping with a married coworker land directly in HR's inbox. Especially when some of those photos show them sneaking off during company time. Hannah begged me to stop, said we could work through this. She'd leave Jason. We could raise the baby together. I let her cry. I let her apologize. I let her think she still had a chance to fix this. And then, 2 days later, I served her with divorce papers. No alimony. No settlement. The company she worked for was more than happy to cut ties. After all, I'd sent them copies of everything too. Let Jason take care of her. Let him raise the kid. As for me, I walked away with everything. And it didn't take it well. She cried. Screamed. Threw plates at the wall like that was going to unfuck her decisions. You're ruining my life, Michael, she shrieked, standing in the wreckage of our kitchen. Her face was streaked with mascara, hair tangled from running her hands through it over and over again. Please, you can't just walk away like this. I stayed calm, sitting at the dining table with the divorce papers spread in front of me. I was polite, unshaken. I'm not ruining anything, Hannah. You did that just fine by yourself. She lunged toward me, palms slamming down on the table. It was a mistake. I fucked up, okay? But you. I cut her off, my voice dropping into something cold and sharp. Don't. This isn't about me forgiving you, Hannah. This is about consequences. And you got a long list coming. Her breath hitched. For the first time since this started, I saw a real fear in her eyes. Not the fear of losing me. The fear of losing everything. I tapped the papers with my pen. Sign it. Or don't. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's happening. She sank in the chair across from me. Shoulders slumped like the weight of her lies had finally caught up. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the texts. The photos. Jason's baby growing inside her. No. She wasn't getting sympathy from me. Hannah wiped her face roughly with the back of her hand, smudging makeup across her cheek. And what about the house? She muttered, voice barely above a whisper. My name's on the mortgage too, Michael. I smiled faintly. Not anymore. Her head snapped up. What? I leaned back, tapping the folder beside me. I had it transferred. You didn't notice the paperwork, did you? Probably too busy sneaking off with Jason. Her eyes widened. You can't. I already did. I wasn't an idiot. While she was busy playing house with Jason, I quietly pulled every legal string I could find. My name was the only one left on the house. Her car? And my name too. Bank accounts? Already frozen and divided. By the time she finally noticed what was happening, it was too late. A week later, I came home to find Hannah's stuff piled up by the front door. She was standing there, arms crossed, waiting for me. You think this is funny? I glanced at the boxes, holding back a smirk. Little bit. You're throwing me out of my own house, Michael. I leaned casually against the wall, arms folding across my chest. It's not your house, Hannah. Not anymore. Her lips trembled, but I didn't miss the flash of hatred in her eyes. You're a real bastard, you know that? Takes one to know one. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. And Jason? Is he next on your hit list? I shrugged. Jason's not my problem. Not anymore. Jason had called me. Begged me, actually. Told me Hannah was blowing up his life now that she had nowhere else to go. Apparently, homewreckers don't make good house guests. Poetic, really. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a crack in her confidence. I didn't care. Go to Jason. I opened the front door, gesturing toward the street. Or don't. It's your problem now. She stood frozen for a second, staring at me like she was trying to burn herself into my memory. Like maybe that would somehow change things. It didn't. After a long pause, Hannah grabbed one of the boxes and stormed out without another word. 6 months later, I ran into her at the grocery store. I didn't expect it. I was picking up steak and bourbon for a quiet night at home. Nothing fancy, just enjoying the peace of not having to share space with a liar. But there she was, waddling through the produce aisle, hand pressed against the small of her back. 8 months pregnant. Jason wasn't with her. Hannah's face paled the second she saw me. She froze by the apples, gripping her cart like she thought I might rip it away from her. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched. She looked different. Tired. Drained. Not glowing like pregnant women were supposed to. Her eyes flickered nervously over me, lingering on my hand, the one where my wedding ring used to be. I smiled faintly. Evening. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I started to walk past her, reaching for a bottle of wine nearby. But just as I turned, she finally spoke, voice soft and uneven. Michael, wait. I didn't. Michael, please. I sighed, placing the bottle carefully in my cart. What, Hannah? She hesitated, like she was trying to find the right words. Her eyes flickered toward the floor. Can we talk? About what? I asked, crossing my arms. You need tips on baby furniture or something? Her lip quivered, and for a second, I thought she might start crying right there between the apples and avocados. She swallowed, avoiding my stare. Jason's gone. I blinked. Gone? She nodded. Left 3 weeks ago. Took his stuff while I was at a doctor's appointment. I wanted to laugh. I really did. But somehow, I kept my face neutral. Wow. Didn't see that coming, I said flatly, tilting my head. Guess fatherhood wasn't his thing after all. Hannah's hands tightened on the cart handle, knuckles white. He said he wasn't ready, that I was too much. I think he's seeing someone else. I raised a brow. Yeah? How's that feel? She flinched like I'd slapped her. There was the karma she had coming. Michael, please, she whispered, tears threatening to spill. I have nothing. Jason's gone, the house is his, and I cut her off, stepping closer. And whose fault is that? She shut her mouth immediately. You made your choice, Hannah, I said, voice calm but firm. You chose him. You let him fuck you in our bed. You let him take everything we built together, and you didn't give a damn until it all came crashing down around you. She looked away, wiping a tear that had finally broken free. I didn't stop. You wanted Jason? Well, you got him. Hope the sex was worth it. Hannah trembled, shoulders shaking as she fought to keep herself together. Michael, I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. Her voice cracked, barely holding on. But please, I need help. I don't have anyone else. I'm not my problem. Each word was sharp, deliberate. I let the silence settle between us, letting her feel the weight of those words. She wasn't my responsibility anymore. Not her. Not Jason's kid. I let go of the anger months ago. I wasn't carrying that weight anymore. I wasn't bitter. I was free. Good luck with the baby, I said, brushing past her cart and heading toward the checkout line. Try not to sleep with the next guy who offers you attention. Maybe it'll last this time. I didn't look back. 1 year later, Jason's kid isn't mine. Hannah tried reaching out again after the baby was born. Sent pictures, texts, even had the nerve to suggest I come meet my son. I blocked her number. As for Jason, he resurfaced a few months later. Got arrested for credit card fraud. Turns out, he'd been draining Hannah's accounts long before he skipped town. Wiped her clean, leaving her with nothing but a newborn and overdue bills. Poetic. I heard she moved back in with her parents. Small-town gossip says she's struggling. Working part-time at some office, barely making ends meet. Meanwhile, I bought a new car, a new house. Hell, I even started dating again. Life goes on. But every once in a while, when I pass by certain parts of town, I wonder if she thinks about it. About how she burned it all down for nothing. Thank you for listening the story to the end. Write your thoughts about it in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe. See you in the next videos.